Explain how environmental monitoring can assist in evaluating the impact of habitat fragmentation on local wildlife populations. Include key methodologies used in fieldwork. Answer: environmental monitoring evaluates habitat fragmentation's impact by collecting and analyzing ecological data to assess changes in biodiversity, population dynamics, and species distribution. Key methodologies include biodiversity surveys, regular observations of species richness and abundance using techniques like transects and quadrats, population sampling, marker capture methods for estimating population sizes, habitat quality assessment, measurement of vegetation cover, soil health, and water quality to determine ecosystem viability, camera traps and acoustic monitoring, non-invasive tools for tracking elusive or nocturnal species. Habitat fragmentation often leads to isolated populations, increasing extinction risk. Continuous monitoring provides data critical for conservation strategies like corridor creation and reforestation. Relevant guidelines include the Convention on Biological Diversity (CBD), which emphasizes monitoring to meet biodiversity targets. What are the advantages and limitations of using GPS collars versus VHF radio collars for tracking large mammals in wildlife management? Answer: advantages of GPS collars. Accuracy: provides precise location data at frequent intervals. Automation: can transmit data via satellites, eliminating the need for field retrieval. Advanced analysis: allows for spatial analysis of movement patterns using GIS software. Limitations of GPS collars: cost: expensive compared to VHF systems. Battery life: shorter lifespan due to high power consumption. Environmental interference: signal loss in dense forests or mountainous terrain. Advantages of VHF radio collars: cost effective, less expensive, and widely used for smaller budgets. Durability: longer battery life due to simpler technology. Limitations of VHF radio collars: manual tracking requires researchers to be within signal range, increasing field effort. Less precision: provides less granular data compared to GPS. Dr. Maria is tasked with capturing and restraining a group of wild kangaroos for health assessments. During the operation, one kangaroo shows signs of severe stress, including vocalization, rapid breathing, and erratic movements. What steps should Dr. Maria take to minimize stress and ensure the animal's welfare? Answer: Dr. Maria should take immediate action to minimize the stress of the kangaroo and ensure its well-being. Cease restraint: if the kangaroo is showing signs of extreme stress, the first step is to stop any handling that could be exacerbating the situation. Stress can lead to serious physiological damage, so it's crucial to allow the animal some space to recover. Provide a calm environment. Reduce any environmental stimuli that could be causing additional stress. This includes reducing noise levels, limiting the number of people around the animal, and ensuring the area is quiet and calm. Sedation: if the animal is too stressed to calm down, mild sedation may be necessary, but only under veterinary supervision. A tranquilizer can help reduce anxiety and make the procedure safer for both the animal and the handler. Use of species-specific techniques. For kangaroos, it's important to use handling techniques that minimize physical restraint and allow the animal to feel more secure. This might involve utilizing padded enclosures or gentle physical support. Continuous monitoring. Throughout the process, Dr. Maria should monitor the kangaroo's stress indicators such as heart rate, respiration, and muscle tension to determine if further action is needed. Discuss how GIS and remote sensing can be integrated to study the effects of climate change on migratory bird species. Answer: GIS and remote sensing technologies offer powerful tools for studying the effects of climate change on migratory birds. By combining spatial data and environmental variables, researchers can track habitat shifts and anticipate future changes. Habitat mapping, satellite imagery, and remote sensing data allow scientists to map the habitats of migratory birds across vast regions. This data can be used to detect changes in land use, vegetation cover, and climate factors like temperature and rainfall, all of which directly influence bird migration patterns. Climate models. GIS allows for the integration of climate models that predict future environmental conditions based on current data. By overlaying these models with bird habitat maps, scientists can forecast shifts in migration routes or the suitability of traditional breeding and stopover sites. Migration patterns. Tracking the movements of tagged birds through GPS telemetry allows researchers to visualize migration routes and timing. Deforestation and habitat loss. Remote sensing also aids in monitoring deforestation and land development, which may destroy critical habitats for migratory birds. What non-lethal methods can be used to reduce conflicts between humans and large predators in agricultural regions? Explain their effectiveness. Answer: non-lethal methods play a crucial role in reducing human-wildlife conflict, particularly in areas where large predators such as wolves, bears, and big cats come into contact with agricultural activities. These methods are not only effective but also help maintain predator populations, which are essential for ecosystem balance. Livestock guarding dogs. These dogs are trained to protect livestock from predators by acting as a deterrent. They have proven effective in reducing attacks by alerting farmers or scaring off predators. Studies show that they significantly decrease livestock depredation in agricultural regions. Electric fencing. One of the most successful and widely adopted techniques is the use of electric fences. These fences prevent predators from accessing livestock areas without causing harm to the animals. The presence of an electric fence alone often serves as an effective deterrent. Habitat modification. By altering the environment around farms, such as clearing brush or using vegetation that does not attract predators, farmers can reduce the likelihood of predators approaching livestock. This method involves less human intervention but requires careful planning to avoid ecological damage. Behavioral deterrents. Devices that emit loud sounds or flashing lights can disorient and frighten predators, preventing them from approaching agricultural areas. These methods are useful in smaller, more localized conflict zones. The Wildlife Conservation Society emphasizes these methods as part of a holistic strategy to protect both human interests and predator species, demonstrating their importance in conservation efforts. Non-lethal techniques promote coexistence while reducing the risk of harm to both wildlife and people. Compare classical and operant conditioning in animal training, providing an example of each. Answer: classical and operant conditioning are two fundamental principles of animal learning that are used in various training techniques. Each has its own applications and methods of reinforcing or modifying behavior. Classical conditioning. This type of learning involves associating a neutral stimulus with an unconditioned stimulus to provoke an automatic response. A classic example is Ivan Pavlov's experiment with dogs. He rang a bell, neutral stimulus, whenever he fed them, unconditioned stimulus, causing the dogs to salivate, unconditioned response. Eventually, the sound of the bell alone, conditioned stimulus, triggered salivation, conditioned response even without food. Example: in animal training, a clicker is often used as a conditioned stimulus paired with food rewards, unconditioned stimulus, to train behaviors. Over time, the animal responds to the sound of the clicker even before the food is presented. Operant conditioning. This involves strengthening or weakening a behavior by using consequences, rewards, or punishments. In operant conditioning, the animal's behavior is shaped by its consequences. Positive reinforcement, such as giving a treat when a dog sits, is a common method. Example: a dolphin performing tricks for fish rewards uses operant conditioning. The dolphin learns that performing certain behaviors like spinning results in a positive outcome, the reward. Operant conditioning is particularly effective in teaching complex behaviors as it allows for the shaping of behavior through incremental reinforcement. It is widely used in various training contexts, including marine mammal training and service animal preparation. APDT guidelines emphasize using positive reinforcement as the most ethical and effective form of operant conditioning. Mr. Bennett is training a dolphin to perform a spin using a whistle and fish rewards. However, the dolphin starts showing frustration by splashing water instead of spinning. How should Mr. Bennett address this situation using operant conditioning principles? Answer: Mr. Bennett should follow these steps to address the dolphin's frustration using operant conditioning. Reinforce desired behavior. Mr. Bennett should focus on rewarding the correct behavior, the spin, and not the splashing. To avoid reinforcing unwanted behaviors, he must ensure that fish rewards are only given when the dolphin performs the desired action, U-shaping. If the dolphin is struggling to spin, Mr. Bennett can break the behavior down into smaller steps and reward incremental progress. For example, if the dolphin is moving in the right direction but not completing the spin, he should reward partial spins, gradually increasing expectations. Consistency. The timing of the whistle and the reward must be immediate and consistent to help the dolphin understand the connection between the action and the reward. Avoid punishment. It is crucial to avoid punishing the dolphin for splashing, as this could lead to stress or confusion. Instead, Mr. Bennett should redirect the dolphin's focus to positive behaviors and maintain a calm, encouraging environment. By adhering to operant conditioning principles, Mr. Bennett can modify the dolphin's behavior without causing stress or frustration. Why is it critical to use species-specific protocols during animal transportation, and what factors must be considered? Answer: using species-specific protocols during transportation is essential for ensuring the welfare of the animal, preventing injury, and minimizing stress. Each species has unique physiological and behavioral needs that must be addressed during transport. Factors to consider include physical requirements. The size and physical condition of the animal determine the appropriate size of the transport container, ventilation, and temperature. For example, elephants require much larger containers compared to smaller mammals, and they need specific dietary provisions during transport. Behavioral traits. Some species are more sensitive to stress or confinement. For example, birds may require padded walls in their transport crates to reduce anxiety caused by confinement. Species like primates might need more interaction or familiar stimuli to reduce stress during long journeys. Health considerations. Animals should be fit for transport, meaning they should not be pregnant, ill, or underweight. Veterinary checks before transport are crucial. Regulatory compliance. Legal frameworks, such as CITES Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, require specific transport standards for endangered species. These regulations ensure that the animals' needs are met and that they are not exposed to unnecessary risks. Species-specific protocols help minimize the potential for trauma, stress, and injuries during transport, following the ethical standards set by organizations like the International Air Transport Association (IATA). Outline the physiological signs of stress in wildlife during restraint and how handlers can mitigate these effects. Answer: during restraint, wildlife can exhibit several physiological signs of stress, including increased heart rate, one of the most common indicators of stress, often accompanied by rapid breathing; muscle tension. Animals may tense their muscles or try to escape, indicating anxiety or fear. Vocalization. Screaming, growling, or other vocalizations are signs that the animal is in distress. Changes in posture. Aggressive or defensive postures, such as freezing or attempting to flee, are common in stressed animals. Handlers can mitigate these effects by minimizing handling time, shortening the duration of restraint to avoid prolonged stress. Species-specific handling, using appropriate techniques for different species, such as blindfolding or using calming scents for certain animals. Calm environment. Keeping noise levels low and reducing the number of handlers can decrease the animal's anxiety. Sedation. In cases of extreme stress, sedation may be necessary, but this should only be done under veterinary supervision. What are the advantages of using point count surveys over transect surveys for bird population monitoring? Answer: point count surveys and transect surveys are two common methods for monitoring bird populations, each with distinct advantages. Point count surveys. Advantages: these surveys allow researchers to observe birds from fixed locations, reducing disturbance to the habitat. They are particularly useful in dense or difficult to navigate areas where transects may be impractical. Point counts also allow for more focused behavioral observations, such as bird songs or mating behaviors. Best use: ideal for forested habitats or areas with high bird density where covering large areas with transects would be time-consuming or invasive. Transect surveys. Advantages: transects allow for a broader sampling of the habitat and are useful for estimating bird densities over large, open areas. They provide a wider geographic context for studying population trends across different habitats. Best use: effective for monitoring birds in open habitats, such as grasslands or wetlands where visibility is not restricted. Ecocomparative study of vertebrates. How does the musculoskeletal system of amphibians differ from that of reptiles, particularly in terms of locomotion and structural adaptations? Answer: the musculoskeletal system of amphibians and reptiles differs significantly in structural adaptations due to their differing environmental niches. Amphibians, such as frogs, often rely on a combination of aquatic and terrestrial locomotion, which has led to specialized adaptations like powerful hind limbs for jumping and webbed feet for swimming. The spine in amphibians is less rigid, enabling greater flexibility for aquatic movement, but also limiting their terrestrial speed and agility. Reptiles, in contrast, exhibit a more rigid and elongated spinal column, supporting efficient terrestrial locomotion, particularly for running or climbing. Their limbs are typically more robust, with more developed digits for grasping, climbing, or burrowing. Reptiles also have a better developed pelvic girdle, which allows for more effective land-based locomotion. The differences highlight evolutionary adaptations driven by the environmental demands on each group, with amphibians emphasizing flexibility for aquatic life and reptiles developing sturdier, more efficient support for terrestrial environments. Explain how the cardiovascular system of a bird is adapted for high metabolic rates associated with flight. Answer: birds have a highly specialized cardiovascular system to support their high metabolic rates during flight. Key adaptations include a large, efficient four-chambered heart, which ensures a complete separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, allowing for efficient oxygen delivery to tissues. This is vital for sustaining the energy demands of flight. The left ventricle in particular is much larger in birds than in most other animals, enabling it to pump oxygen-rich blood at high pressures to the systemic circulation. Additionally, birds have a high rate of heartbeats, around 300-400 beats per minute in some species, ensuring that oxygen is constantly delivered to their flight muscles. Their blood vessels are also more flexible and capable of accommodating the high volume of blood required for such energy-intensive activities. Moreover, birds have an efficient method of heat dissipation with a higher surface area to volume ratio in their circulatory system, which helps maintain thermal balance during flight, further enhancing metabolic efficiency. How does the respiratory system of fish differ from that of mammals in terms of gas exchange, and how is this difference suited to their respective environments? Answer: Fish and mammals exhibit profound differences in their respiratory systems due to their vastly different environments. Fish rely on gills for respiration, which extract oxygen from water. Water flows over the gills and oxygen is absorbed into the bloodstream through diffusion, while carbon dioxide is expelled in the opposite direction. The gill arches, covered with filaments, provide a large surface area for gas exchange. In contrast, mammals rely on lungs for respiration, which extract oxygen from air. Air is drawn into the lungs, where it passes through a network of bronchioles and alveoli, allowing gas exchange with the bloodstream. Unlike gills, lungs are adapted for breathing air, with a large surface area created by the alveolar sacs for efficient gas exchange. The difference in respiratory strategies is due to the oxygen content in each medium. Water contains significantly less oxygen than air, making gills more efficient in extracting oxygen from a larger volume of water, whereas lungs are adapted for the more oxygen-rich atmosphere. Mr. Robinson is working in a veterinary clinic where a dog has been brought in with signs of severe dehydration, including lethargy, dry gums, and sunken eyes. What steps should Mr. Robinson take to assess the severity of dehydration and determine the best course of treatment? Answer: Mr. Robinson should first perform a thorough assessment to determine the severity of the dehydration. This includes clinical examination, checking the skin turgor by gently pinching the skin to see if it tents the sign of dehydration. The more prolonged the tenting, the more severe the dehydration. Capillary refill tie (CRT). Checking CRT by pressing on the dog's gums and releasing the pressure to see how quickly the color returns. A CRT greater than 2 seconds indicates poor circulation, suggesting moderate to severe dehydration. Weight and urine output. Estimating the dog's weight loss and evaluating urine output. A loss of more than 10% of body weight is a sign of severe dehydration, and a lack of urine output suggests a serious issue. Blood work, measuring blood parameters like packed cell volume (PCV), utal protein, and blood urea nitrogen (BUN) to help gauge the degree of dehydration. Elevated levels of BUN and PCV suggest a higher degree of dehydration. Treatment involves administering intravenous Roman fluids, starting with isotonic crystalloids such as saline or lactated Ringer's solution. The rate and volume depend on the degree of dehydration as assessed clinically and via laboratory tests. Rehydration should be done carefully to avoid complications such as fluid overload. Describe how the nervous system of invertebrates such as arthropods is structurally and functionally different from that of vertebrates. Answer: Invertebrates, particularly arthropods, have a decentralized nervous system that contrasts with the centralization seen in vertebrates. The arthropod nervous system consists of a brain, often referred to as the supraesophageal ganglion, and a ventral nerve cord with ganglia at each segment of the body. This arrangement allows for local control and coordination of movement, which is particularly beneficial in rapidly responding to environmental stimuli. Invertebrates typically have less complex brain structures compared to vertebrates, with fewer specialized areas for higher functions such as thought or reasoning. However, they compensate for this through highly efficient reflex circuits, often coordinated by sensory neurons, allowing quick responses to external stimuli. Vertebrates, on the other hand, have a centralized brain and spinal cord central nervous system that is protected by bone or cartilage. Their nervous systems are more complex, with specialized regions of the brain dedicated to cognition, memory, and complex sensory processing. Vertebrates also exhibit more elaborate motor control and integration of sensory input for adaptive behaviors. How does the endocrine system of mammals regulate metabolic functions, and what feedback mechanisms are involved in maintaining homeostasis? Answer: The endocrine system in mammals regulates metabolism through hormones produced by various glands, including the thyroid, pancreas, adrenal glands, and pituitary gland. The thyroid gland produces thyroxine, which regulates the basal metabolic rate (BR) by influencing the activity of mitochondria and the rate at which cells consume oxygen. The pancreas produces insulin and glucagon to regulate blood glucose levels. Insulin lowers glucose levels by promoting uptake into cells, while glucagon raises glucose levels by stimulating glycogen breakdown in the liver. Feedback mechanisms play a critical role in maintaining homeostasis. For example, the hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis involves a negative feedback loop. When thyroid hormone levels in the blood drop, the hypothalamus releases thyrotropin-releasing hormone (ERH), which stimulates the pituitary to release thyroid-stimulating hormone (TH), prompting the thyroid to produce more thyroxine. Once levels of thyroid hormone are adequate, the feedback loop ensures that further production is inhibited. Similarly, the pancreas uses negative feedback in the regulation of blood sugar levels. Elevated blood glucose triggers insulin secretion to lower glucose, while low levels stimulate glucagon release to increase glucose production. What are the physiological adaptations of ruminants' digestive systems that enable them to efficiently process cellulose from plant matter? Answer: ruminants such as cows and sheep have specialized digestive systems that allow them to efficiently process cellulose, a complex carbohydrate found in plant cell walls. Their stomachs consist of 4 compartments: the rumen, reticulum, omasum, and abomasum. The rumen serves as a fermentation vat where microorganisms, bacteria, protozoa, and fungi break down cellulose into simpler compounds such as fatty acids and gases. The reticulum works closely with the rumen to further break down particles and form cud, which the animal regurgitates to chew again, increasing the surface area for microbial digestion. The omasum absorbs water and nutrients, and the abomasum, which is similar to a monogastric stomach, digests proteins using gastric acids and enzymes. The fermentation process in the rumen produces volatile fatty acids, which are absorbed through the rumen wall and serve as a major energy source for ruminants, enabling them to thrive on a diet high in fibrous plant material. This unique digestive system reflects an adaptation to the herbivorous diet. Ms. Taylor is working as a veterinarian for a research facility where laboratory mice are being studied. She notices that the behavior of the mice seems abnormal, with frequent pacing and reduced activity. What environmental enrichment strategies could she implement to improve the welfare of the animals? Answer: Ms. Taylor should first ensure that the basic needs of the laboratory mice are met, including proper nutrition, adequate space, and appropriate social interaction. She could implement the following enrichment strategies to improve their welfare: environmental complexity. Adding objects like tunnels, nesting materials, and climbing structures can provide the mice with opportunities to explore, hide, and exercise. These types of changes stimulate natural behaviors and reduce stress. Social enrichment. Mice are social animals, and solitary confinement can lead to stress and abnormal behaviors. Introducing compatible cage mates can promote social interaction, which is essential for psychological well-being. Foraging opportunities. Providing materials for burrowing and introducing food in a scattered or hidden manner can encourage natural foraging behaviors. This reduces boredom and enhances mental stimulation. Sensory enrichment. Introducing novel smells, sounds, or visual stimuli can help alleviate monotony and promote curiosity. However, it's important to avoid overwhelming the animals with excessive or stressful stimuli. What are the key physiological differences between the digestive systems of monogastric and ruminant animals, particularly in relation to the fermentation process? Answer: monogastric animals, such as humans and pigs, have a simple single-chambered stomach where food is partially digested by gastric enzymes and acids before being passed to the small intestine for further digestion and nutrient absorption. Fermentation, if it occurs, is limited to the hindgut, particularly the cecum, where some fiber digestion takes place. However, the process is not as efficient as in ruminants, which possess a specialized 4-compartment stomach designed for fermentation. In ruminants, the fermentation process begins in the rumen, where microbes break down complex plant fibers, cellulose, into fatty acids and gases. These byproducts provide the animal with energy, and the animal absorbs fatty acids directly from the rumen wall. After fermentation in the rumen and reticulum, the cud is regurgitated for further chewing, enhancing the breakdown of fiber. This is followed by nutrient absorption in the omasum and digestion of proteins and other nutrients in the abomasum. Thus, the main physiological difference lies in the location and extent of fermentation. Monogastric animals primarily digest fiber in the hindgut, while ruminants utilize a highly specialized foregut fermentation system, allowing them to extract more nutrients from plant materials. Explain how animal behaviorists assess the welfare of animals using behavioral metrics and provide an example of how these metrics might indicate poor welfare in a species. Answer: animal behaviorists assess welfare by observing and recording behavioral indicators that reflect the physical and psychological state of the animal. These include activity levels. Decreased activity or excessive lethargy can indicate poor welfare, such as when an animal is in pain, stressed, or depressed. Posture and movement. Normal postures, huddling, shaking, or limping can signal discomfort or injury. Eating and drinking habits. Loss of appetite or changes in eating behavior, such as excessive eating or drinking, can be signs of stress or health issues. Social behavior. Social animals that are isolated or show aggression toward others may be experiencing stress, frustration, or environmental discomfort. Grooming. Excessive grooming or lack of grooming can be indicative of anxiety, stress, or health problems. For example, in captive primates, the presence of stereotypic behaviors like pacing or self-biting can indicate poor welfare due to environmental stressors or lack of enrichment. Conversely, natural foraging or socializing would suggest a more positive welfare state. Explain the roles of macronutrients and micronutrients in animal nutrition, highlighting how imbalances in these nutrients can affect the health and performance of animals. Use specific examples to illustrate how deficiencies or excesses of particular nutrients can result in clinical conditions. Answer: macronutrients include proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, which provide energy and are essential for growth, maintenance, and reproduction. Proteins are made up of amino acids and are crucial for tissue repair and enzyme production. Fats supply energy and are important for cellular structure and hormone production. Carbohydrates are the primary energy source, especially for herbivores that rely on complex carbohydrates such as fiber. Micronutrients, including vitamins and minerals, are required in smaller quantities but are essential for metabolic processes. Deficiencies in these nutrients can lead to serious health conditions. For instance, vitamin a deficiency can cause night blindness and immune dysfunction. Calcium deficiency can lead to rickets in growing animals or osteoporosis in older animals. Excessive protein intake can put a strain on the kidneys, especially in animals with pre-existing kidney disease. In clinical practice, balanced nutrition is critical for optimal health and performance. Animals under stress, such as lactating females or growing animals, may have altered nutrient requirements that must be addressed in their diet formulation. What are the advantages and limitations of using ultrasound and radiology for diagnosing soft tissue and bone abnormalities in animals? Provide an example scenario where one diagnostic tool would be preferred over the other. Answer: ultrasound is a non-invasive imaging technique that uses sound waves to produce real-time images, primarily useful for evaluating soft tissue structures such as the heart, liver, kidneys, and pregnancy. Its advantages include being able to perform dynamic imaging like observing blood flow or heart function. However, ultrasound is not effective for imaging bones or air-filled structures like the lungs. Radiology X-rays, on the other hand, is invaluable for diagnosing bone fractures, tumors, or foreign bodies. It provides clear images of dense structures but is less useful for evaluating soft tissues unless a contrast agent is used. Scenario: a dog presents with a suspected abdominal mass. You want to determine whether the mass is soft tissue like a tumor or if it involves bone. Which imaging method should you use and why? Answer: in this case, ultrasound would be preferred initially as it can provide detailed images of the soft tissue mass. If bone involvement is suspected, radiology could then be used to rule out any bony involvement or identify any other complications such as fractures or foreign bodies. Discuss the specific nutritional needs of lactating animals and the impact that inadequate nutrition can have on both the mother and the offspring. What strategies would you implement to ensure optimal health and milk production in lactating cows? Answer: lactating animals, especially dairy cows, have increased nutritional demands, particularly for energy, protein, vitamins, and minerals. Energy requirements increase significantly to support milk production. Deficient energy intake can lead to negative energy balance, resulting in weight loss, decreased milk yield, and potential reproductive failure. Key considerations for lactating cows include protein. Adequate protein is needed for milk protein synthesis, and deficiencies can result in reduced milk quality. Calcium and phosphorus. High levels of calcium are required to support lactation, but if calcium intake is too low, cows are at risk for hypocalcemia, milk fever. Vitamins and trace minerals. Vitamins A, D, and E are crucial for immune function and general health during lactation. To ensure optimal health and production, formulate a balanced diet that meets the increased nutrient needs. Consider adding high-quality forage and energy-dense concentrates. Monitor the cow's body condition and milk production regularly to adjust their feeding plan. Explain the key considerations in the pharmacological management of anesthesia and pain relief in small animal surgery. How do you balance the risks of anesthesia with the need for effective pain management, and what guidelines should be followed to ensure animal safety? Answer: pharmacological management of anesthesia involves selecting the right drugs and dosages to maintain anesthesia while minimizing risks. Anesthesia can be achieved through a combination of sedatives, analgesics, and anesthetic agents. Analgesics are crucial to manage pain during and after surgery. Key considerations: pre-anesthetic assessment. A thorough physical exam and blood work are essential to identify any underlying conditions that may affect drug metabolism. Choice of anesthetic agents. For example, propofol is commonly used for induction, while isoflurane is often used for maintenance. Both are generally safe but must be adjusted based on the animal's weight, age, and health. Pain management. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, opioids, and local anesthetics, e.g. lidocaine, are used to provide post-operative pain relief. Opioids should be used cautiously to avoid respiratory depression. Monitoring. Continuous monitoring of vital signs, heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation is necessary to detect any adverse effects early. Mrs. Edwards has a 12-year-old Labrador Retriever named Max. Max has been slowing down lately, and Mrs. Edwards is concerned about his weight and energy levels. What dietary adjustments should be considered to meet the specific nutritional needs of an older dog? Answer: as dogs age, their metabolism slows down and they may require adjustments to their diet to maintain optimal health. In the case of Max, key dietary adjustments could include reducing caloric intake. Older dogs tend to have a lower metabolic rate, so it's important to reduce the caloric content to prevent obesity. Low-fat, high-protein diets can help maintain lean muscle mass, increase fiber. Fiber helps maintain gastrointestinal health, particularly for older dogs that may have constipation or digestive issues. Joint support. Adding joint supplements like glucosamine and chondroitin to the diet can be beneficial, especially for a breed prone to joint issues like Labrador Retrievers. Nutrient-dense food. Ensure that the food contains appropriate levels of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants to support immune function and reduce oxidative stress. Additionally, regular monitoring of Max's weight and energy levels should guide further dietary changes. What are the common feed contaminants that can lead to toxicity in livestock, and what are the signs of poisoning in animals? How should feed be managed to prevent contamination? Answer: common feed contaminants that lead to toxicity include mycotoxins, produced by molds, e.g. aflatoxins. These can cause liver damage, immune suppression, and reduce growth rates. Pesticides. Residual chemicals can cause poisoning and even death if ingested in large amounts. Heavy metals. Contamination from soil or water sources, e.g. lead mercury, can accumulate in feed and cause neurological issues. Bacterial contamination. Salmonella or E. coli in feed can lead to gastrointestinal illnesses. Signs of poisoning vary based on the contaminant, but may include lethargy, diarrhea, vomiting, neurological symptoms, tremors, seizures, and sudden death. Feed should be stored in clean, dry conditions to prevent contamination, and regular testing for toxins should be conducted. Livestock should be monitored for signs of ill health after introducing new feed or supplements. What are the key steps in managing a traumatic wound in a small animal, and how do you determine if the wound requires surgical intervention or can be treated conservatively? Answer: wound management in small animals involves a structured approach. Initial assessment: evaluate the severity of the wound, including its depth, location, and contamination level. Consider the animal's overall health and risk of infection. Cleaning the wound: use sterile saline to flush the wound, removing debris and bacteria. Debridement: remove necrotic tissue to promote healing. This may involve surgical debridement if the tissue is deeply damaged. Closure: if the wound is clean and superficial, it may be closed using sutures or staples. For deep or infected wounds, it may be better to leave the wound open for drainage. Pain management: administer appropriate analgesics to minimize discomfort during treatment. Surgical intervention is required for deep or infected wounds, while superficial wounds may be managed conservatively with dressing changes and antibiotics. Discuss the specific nutritional needs of growing animals, e.g. puppies or calves, and the potential risks of overfeeding or underfeeding. How should their diet be formulated to support optimal growth and development? Answer: growing animals require higher levels of energy, protein, and essential nutrients to support rapid growth. Key considerations include protein. Growing animals need higher protein levels to support muscle development and tissue growth. Energy. A balance of carbohydrates and fats provides energy without promoting obesity. High-energy foods should be fed in controlled amounts to avoid excessive weight gain. Calcium and phosphorus. Proper calcium to phosphorus ratios are critical for skeletal development. Overfeeding calcium in growing animals can lead to skeletal deformities, while deficiencies can cause rickets. Vitamins and minerals ensure that essential vitamins A, D, E, and trace minerals, zinc, copper, are provided for immune function and metabolic health. Growing animals should be fed a balanced diet formulated for their specific species and developmental stage, with regular monitoring to prevent growth abnormalities. What are the key components of post-operative care for an animal following a major surgery, and how do you monitor recovery to ensure complications are minimized? Answer: post-operative care involves several key components: monitoring vital signs. Regularly check temperature, pulse, respiration, and pain levels. An animal's temperature should stabilize after surgery, and any significant deviation could indicate infection or complications. Pain management. Administer prescribed analgesics and monitor their effectiveness. Pain can increase the risk of complications like delayed healing or infection. Wound care. Inspect the surgical site for signs of infection, redness, swelling, discharge, and ensure proper bandaging or dressing. Fluid therapy. Continue fluids to maintain hydration and support kidney function, especially if the surgery involved extensive tissue manipulation. Nutritional support. Ensure that the animal is eating and drinking. Adjustments may be necessary if the animal is reluctant to eat post-surgery. Continuous monitoring and regular checkups are essential to ensure a smooth recovery and prevent complications such as infection or delayed healing. Explain the specific dietary requirements of herbivores, focusing on their need for fiber and how different types of herbivores, e.g., ruminants versus non-ruminants, process their food. How does this affect the formulation of their diet? Answer: herbivores primarily rely on plant materials for their nutritional needs. Their digestive systems are specialized to break down fibrous plant material. Ruminants, e.g., cows, sheep, have a complex stomach with 4 compartments allowing for fermentation and breakdown of cellulose. They require a high-fiber diet, typically consisting of grasses and hay. Ruminants can also utilize volatile fatty acids produced during fermentation as an energy source. A balanced intake of protein and carbohydrates, as well as adequate fiber, is critical for optimal rumen function and health. Non-ruminants, e.g., rabbits, guinea pigs, have simpler stomachs but rely heavily on their cecum for fermentation. They require a high-fiber diet to stimulate cecal fermentation, which provides essential nutrients. They must also be provided with vitamin C, which is synthesized in limited amounts in some species. Both ruminants and non-ruminants need a fiber-rich diet to promote gut motility and prevent digestive issues like bloat. The diet must be tailored to the specific digestive physiology of the species.